The old world media is crumbling before our eyes, and I think there is no better testament to this fact than an affidavit that was recently released by an ABC News whistleblower raising some serious discrepancies over their handling of the recent debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Now, of course, the accusations in this affidavit are alleged and unconfirmed, but in this video I'm going to walk you through the affidavit. We're going to read the affidavit and interpret it, but we're also going to go a little bit beyond that and talk about the broader phenomenon that currently ails media and the relationship between media and knowledge and information within American society. And hopefully I can give you guys some good pointers to set ourselves on a good track as a society on how to handle the situation and situations that are related to it as we go through the next few months in this presidential election and beyond. But before we get into that, my friends, hope all of you are doing well. I am Christian Watt. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy political and social commentary with a philosophical bent, then I must implore you, please like, share, comment, subscribe, do whatever you can to help get our channel successful. My friends, we will not be able to form coherent solutions to the problems that face us unless we are willing to go beyond the surface and look beneath the hood of the car, proverbially speaking, to understand them. Entertainment will not get us there. Laughing will not get us there. Screaming will not get us there. What will get us there is rational thought. And it is my prayer that when you leave this video, I've given you some things to chew on about this topic and more. Thank you guys so much, and please enjoy the video. So, the affidavit is dated September 9th, which was before the debate, which has caused some people that are already looking at this to cast suspicion on it. Although I think the affidavit is actually quite stronger, because if this had happened after the debate, you could make a accusation that the person who submitted the affidavit was doing so for some kind of political gain. Now, there are several things that are alleged in this affidavit. One of those things is that ABC cooperated directly with the Kamala Harris campaign to furnish the debate to be more friendly and palpable to Kamala Harris. Another is that ABC News's internal employees actually have a great hatred towards Donald Trump and figures on the political right, and being an ABC employee and being on the right or being a supporter of Donald Trump is allegedly a black sheep thing within ABC. You face some hostilities within the workforce there, so on and so forth. Now, a little bit of background on the author. The author's name is redacted, which is germane, of course, to whistleblower revelations, because there is a significant fear of retribution that comes with exposing the corruption within an organization. But what we know about the author is that this individual has 10 years of service and I'm quoting the affidavit, in various technical and administrative positions in ABC. So this is allegedly a higher-up person. We also know that this person is not a supporter of Donald Trump, but someone who is simply concerned about the integrity of ABC as a news organization, according to their own admission. So, these details creating a backdrop for us to pursue the truth in this venue, let us read through the full affidavit, which will be on your screen to be able to follow along if you want to, and let us try to draw some sense from this. So, beginning. My name is redacted. I reside in New York. 2. I have worked for ABC News for over 10 years in various technical and administrative positions. 3. Since the acquisition of ABC News in 1996, I have observed significant transformations in the nature of news reporting at the organization. These changes suggest a shift from unbiased reporting to a model influenced by external factors. Now, I must stop you right there. One of the biggest myths, and I'm not saying the whistleblower is incorrect, but one of the biggest myths about the old world media, and I'll explain why I'm calling them the old world media in a second, is that at one point in time, they were unbiased expositors of the truth, or unbiased expositors of information that the public could trust. But now, in our current day, public trust is betrayed. I must disagree. It's not that the old world media was truthful or that they conveyed information in the best way possible. In fact, if you go back to the 60s and the 70s, and you look at the several government operations that occurred with the old world media that deliberately required them to go along with mistruth or covering up stories, whether it be Operation COINTELPRO or other operations, you will quickly see it. This is simply a facade that people in their childhood used to romanticize the media. It's not that they were truthful, it's that they were the dominant monopolies upon the information consumption of the American people. That's all it was. It's nothing to do with truth or credibility. It's not about they were unbiased. It's that they were willing to go along with whatever the official sources would say. And for a very long time, Americans have conflated the origin of information with the truth of information. This is a confusion that I have talked about many times on this channel, but I'll break it down for you. So, how do we understand truth? This is a philosophical question. Well, it's a very complex question, but one of the basic things is that we have to establish if something on its merits makes sense. So one would say, if they hold this viewpoint that I just espoused to you, that we understand truth by evaluating, at least we can start to begin to understand truth by evaluating a claim on its own merits. If someone says, dogs are humans in disguise, well, if I want to understand the truth, I will look at that claim and I will say, okay, well, let's start. Do dogs have all the same anatomy as human beings? They have some anatomy, they have eyes, they have legs, but they have more legs than us. It's interesting. You know, they have skin, but their skin is different, and we don't have fur as human beings. We have hair, they have fur, so there's all kind of things that you can get into. They have a different bone structure, different facial structure, and so much. We can just continue down this line of inquiry to the extent that we can deduce that dogs and humans are categorically different things, even if they are in the same genus, which would be Animalia. We're both animals, but we're animals of a different kind, and in humans' case, we're animals of a higher evolution. Now let's assume that someone said that dogs and humans are the same, but you uncritically accepted it because it came from the dominant authority on pet human relationships. I just made that up, but it's an example of how absurd this is. That is essentially what the public has done for so long with the corporate media. If something came from ABC or CBS or NBC, which were the trifecta of monopoly on information for the latter half of the 20th century, people will automatically assume it is true because the brand names that were giving information were seen as some kind of official source. Truth was not assessed on its merits. Truth was assessed on its associations. And when you assess the truth of the claim on its associations, not only do you commit an egregious logical fallacy, but you set yourself up to being abused and propagandized by the people who now have this kind of epistemic authority over you. So I don't want to disagree here with point 3, but we should understand ABC has never been unbiased. They have always just been official, which is not the same thing as being unbiased. Let's continue. They say, for the record, I do not endorse Donald Trump in his capacity as a candidate for the President of the United States. The intent of this affidavit is to address concerns regarding perceived biases within news reporting within my employer's debate that will be hosted on September 10th, 2024. Observation 1. Observations on debate communication. Since the debate of President Trump and Vice President Harris has been announced to be broadcast on ABC, various members of staff had expressed hope of a debate where issues that were important to everyday Americans would be discussed, and there had been promises made that the candidates would be held to firm discussions regarding their proposed policy stances, and that the debate would not deteriorate into an ad campaign, whereas both candidates would simply make blanket statements without specific policy or explanation. And the rest of this is blocked out. Point 2, political position clarification. Many employees of ABC, this is where it gets interesting, who were looking for a fair and honest debate, questioned the clear bias that is well known throughout the company. It is common knowledge that debate moderators as well as chief executive officers of my employer are well known not to support Donald Trump. This led to several employees speaking up in regards to how fair the debate was going to be. We were given assurance that the debate would be fair, and neither the Harris campaign nor the Trump campaign would have, I assume it says have, because there's a blackout spot there as well. An unfair advantage. So know this. So you have the employees of ABC raising concerns that their employer, or that the employer could conduct a debate in a manner that is unfair. That is a rather telling sign that something is structurally rotten at the core of the ABC. If this is true, again, this is all alleged. We don't know if it's true or not. But I can make a good case that this may be true at the end of this video if you guys stick around for it. Concern 3. Concerns regarding journalistic integrity. It is my belief that contemporary news organizations, including ABC News, no longer adhere to impartiality. Newsflash, they never did. They never did. The myth of the impartial journalist is one of those mediocre hobgoblins that infest the minds of Americans, especially older Americans, so much so that it ruins their understanding of the nature of media in this country. There is no such thing as an impartial media. Go back to the American founding. The literal foundations of American journalism were built on the grounds of partisanship. The partisan press was not just a relic of the 18th century. The partisan press simply mutated and changed forms, and in the 60s, when there was this so-called period of impartiality, where Walter Cronkite was allegedly the guy who embodied the impartial journalist, all those people did was simply conduct themselves in a way that was less sensational than the support reporters of today, but that was still dishonest. Go ask Walter Cronkite. Go interrogate Walter Cronkite's legacy around Vietnam, and you tell me if he was an honest expositor of truth. Again, you have to look beyond your premises and actually investigate this. The influence of commercial interest in substantial donors appears to affect news presentations, resulting in selective reporting and biased narrative. I have personally witnessed news stories being cut from programming and not reported at all due to the influence of certain companies were linked to our parent company. So, we have to understand, when you live in a media model where information is dictated by things other than the desire to inform the public about what's going on, you will ultimately have actions that are impure in the sense that they will not go towards that proper desire. A disordering of a thing from its proper mode of action is what we call a deviation, a privation. It is bad, it is deficient, it is wrong. But these things that are clearly wrong can be made to seem practical, right? You always hear that practicality is a more finer goal than morality, which is just false. They will be seen as practical because you have to keep the organization operating. So what I'm saying right now will be seen as just an ideological, pie-in-the-sky desire to remain true to some principles, when in all reality, people believe that's impossible. Well, the problem is when you disgrace principles on the grounds of expediency, you actually lose the foundation upon which you conduct any kind of business. Practicality by itself is not a sufficient foundation for conducting anything, because what is practical in one moment will change the next moment. So I reject any argument that says that practicality should be the guiding standard of anything. No. Practicality should be the subordinate standard of anything. Subordinate to higher ideas, more perfect ideas, more refined ideas. So when you have companies that are dictated, again, by who fills their pocketbooks, or dictated by who their political allies are, or the more endemic problem that we're seeing here, dictated by a desire to uphold the status quo so as to preserve their own survival, which is what's really going on here if you want the honest truth about it, you will have deceit and manipulation. Deceit and manipulation aren't the outcomes of this. Observation 4. I have noted observations pertaining to debate fairness. I have noted specific instances related to the debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris that raised concerns about procedural fairness. The specific instances of perceived bias are as follows. It goes on to say, 1. The Harris campaign received particular accommodations, including, but not limited to, the providing of a podium significantly smaller than that used by Donald Trump, and assurances regarding split-screen television views that would favorably impact Kamala Harris's appearance relative to Donald Trump. 2. It was agreed that Donald Trump would be subject to the fact-checking during debate, while Kamala Harris would not face any comparable scrutiny. This is quite damning if this is true. This was widely known throughout the company that Donald Trump would be fact-checked. In fact, various people were assigned to fact-check observations. It was perceived candidate Trump would make during the debate. So, not only did they agree not to fact-check Kamala, allegedly, according to this affidavit, they also studied some of Trump's speeches, most likely, and then tried to devise plans to preemptively fact-check them so that when the debate happened, the moderators would be able to do it. If this is true, this is especially damning, most certainly, because essentially everything that Trump said on that debate stage has been repeated at his rallies. So this is actually quite a plausible claim if you think about it. Continuing to go on. This was done during multiple communications with the Harris campaign, whereas the Trump campaign was not included in the negotiation. So, apparently, the Harris campaign was party to negotiations that impacted how the moderators would conduct themselves during the debate, and the Trump campaign was not a part of that, allegedly. To my understanding, any rules, negotiations, and conversations obtaining to the debate should have had both the Trump and Harris campaign involved. The Harris campaign had numerous more calls regarding the debate rules without the Trump campaign aware or on the call. So, if this is to be taken seriously, the Trump campaign may have been keyed into some calls, but not all of them. And if that is true, which, by the way, the Trump campaign could easily confirm or deny if it's true. They have not done so yet. If that is true, that leads more credence to the claims laid out in this affidavit. Continuing, the Harris campaign was provided with sample questions that, while not the exact questions, covered similar topics that would appear during the debate. Furthermore, the Harris campaign imposed restrictions on the scope of questioning, including, and I quote, this is damning, if this is true, 1. No questions regarding the perceived health of President Joe Biden. 2. No inquiries related to her tenure as Attorney General in San Francisco. 3. No questions concerning her brother-in-law, Tony West, who faces allegations of embezzling billions of dollars in taxpayer funds and who may be involved in her administration if elected. This is what the affidavit claims. Now, it's interesting. Did you see one question of the debate, during the debate, about Kamala Harris's tenure as Attorney General of California? I can't recall that I did. Again, these things, I also did not hear a single question related to the health of Joe Biden. These things add more credence to this claim. 5. Internal organizational climate. I have observed a pronounced bias against Donald Trump within ABC News, while employees expressing favorable views towards him experience significant concerns about potential retribution. 6. Purpose and documentation. This affidavit is executed to document and provide transparency regarding issues of fairness and impartiality in the debate process and broader concerns about journalistic integrity at ABC News. Now, there is more information about how this person sent the affidavit over to certain people before the debate. There's notarization as well. There's a lot of different verification rituals that have been gone through. So, in summation, my friends, if this is true, this confirms what a lot of people already suspected. But it's worse than that. It also confirms what a lot of people have suspected, but I don't think it's been talked about too much. It confirms that there is a direct collusion between the DNC or the Kamala Harris campaign and certain organizations. A collusion that we saw with Donald Brazil's egregious sharing questions with the Clinton campaign before a debate that she did. There's a direct collusion which goes into question the integrity of presidential debates in the first place. Now, a few observations. Number 1, news organizations are political symbols. What are those? I've done a big video about that, and if you want to know more about political symbols, look at this video here on the screen or go in the comment section down below. It'll be there. Political symbols are simply things that have general meaning, but their meaning is loose and ill-defined and can be changed by anyone who happens to have the reins of those topics at that particular time. Well, news organizations are political symbols because they purport to be about the news. They purport to be about pursuing political information. And they're also called the fourth estate of the country. They're also called, the necessary check on government. In the Constitution, they're called the press, the free press, so to speak. Well, the problem is we haven't had a free press in a very, very long time, because a free press is a press that is not captured by ulterior interest and is able, most importantly, to check its own interest in the furtherance of a broader interest of truth. If you are bound to your own passions and you are a slave to your own desires, you are not free. If you are a slave to somebody else's desires, you are also not free. Both of those things are unfreedom, and the corporate press are a slave to both of those things if you look at it practically. But that political symbol says the press is important for a republic, for a democracy, they say, and therefore we need the press in order to ensure that politicians cannot get away with lies. So they take that symbolic approach and they use it to rebuff any criticism or suspicion of the press on the grounds that you are attempting to let authoritarians flourish. When in all reality, when you have an unfree press, and if the press is really a good ingredient for a free society, you then therefore have an unfree, or the conditions for an unfree society. A lot of people don't realize this. A lot of people don't get this. A lot of people's hate of the press simply is on surface level. The press says things I don't like, therefore I hate them. No. Understand the civilizational consequences of this, and the symbolic consequences of this as well. Last observation. We should understand something as well. The public is being misled by the abuse of concepts. I did a very big rant about how the presidential debates are not actually presidential debates, because debates themselves are a very particular process that goes to a very particular end. And having a process where no one is really expected to perform beyond the mediocrities of our current day. No one is really expected to address the substance of issues. No one is actually expected by either side that they represent or don't represent to actually delve into the broader phenomenons of what keeps a republic ticking. No one is expected to actually give a performance that informs the American people. The only expectation is to win. The only expectation is to perform well at what is essentially a glorified media contest that leaves the public worse off than it was before in its understanding of political concepts. That, my friends, is one of the biggest con jobs that is being played on all of us. And so the fact that we are seeing this kind of subterfuge, allegedly, if it's true, should be no surprise, because the entire context we exist in right now is one built from the bone marrow of subterfuge. We ought to take a very big step back and ask ourselves one question. What kind of civilization do we want America to be? A civilization guided by mediocrity, a civilization that forgets its own character, or a civilization that remains in tune with the best merits of itself, constantly informs itself of the past, current, and potentially future character of its nation, constantly informs itself of the philosophies that ought to guide the governance of this country, and constantly holds their own elected leaders and their pundits and their commentators and their intellectuals to the highest standards possible. That is the kind of America we need to have. Not an America guided by the lowest impulses of human desire, not an America guided by an unguarded affectation towards certain institutions like the free press that then leaves us vulnerable to manufacturing consent. Because what we have seen during the debate, even if this affidavit is not true, what we saw during the debate is a key example of a concept called manufacturing consent, where the press quite literally acts in coordination, either officially or unofficially, with political powers to drum up a certain idea about a particular event, and therefore to hijack the consent of the public and direct it towards their ends. Remember, consent and harm are the two pillars of moral thinking. And consent, in the classically Republican sense, is the essence of a voter's engagement with the political order, because the consent of the governed is held to be a very important principle. So if you can hijack someone's consent, not only can you hijack their political thinking, you can also hijack their moral thinking. And if you can hijack a man's moral thinking, then my God, you can make him into either the best person ever, or more likely, you can make him into one of the worst people ever, complacent, weak, nimble, simple-minded, and you can direct him to do whatever you want him to do, or to agree with things that under any other context would have been seen as evil. Recognize the dimensions at play here, my friends, and reject what has been put on before you. And most importantly, just stop watching the corporate media. Just stop dealing with these charlatans, please, because they are not making you a better or more informed person. They are doing the exact opposite, or trying to, and it is your choice if they succeed or not. My friends, like, share, comment, subscribe, do whatever you can to get our messages out there. My friends, study history, study philosophy, remain morally convicted, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.